Next, we're going to make the garlic bread. We're going to start out by making the bread. We're going to add 2/3 cup of white cane sugar to a mixing bowl. Next, we're going to add 2 cups of water to the microwave so that we can heat it up to 110 degrees to activate the yeast. You should microwave the water for 1:30 to 1:45 seconds to heat it up to 110 degrees. We're remeasuring the water to see if it's 110 degrees. The water is too hot, so we're going to let it sit for a little bit so it'll get down to 110 degrees. The water is 110 degrees, so we're going to add it to the sugar and stir the sugar into the water. Now that the sugar is stirred into the water, we're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of active dry yeast. And we're going to gently stir to get out the clumps. Now we're going to wait 10 minutes for it to ferment. Now we're going to mix in 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now that we've added the salt, we're going to add 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. And now we're going to add in 1 cup at a time, 5.5 cups of bread flour. Use a spatula to get all of the flour off of the side. Now we're going to mix until it's combined. Make sure that you get all the flour off of the top of the beater. get stiffer, increase the speed of the mixer. The bread is done mixing, so we're going to oil the bowl. To oil the bowl, put a little bit of olive oil in the bowl, and then you can either just mix it with your fingers, or you can put parchment paper over your fingers, that way you don't have to feel the oil, and then just push the oil to all sides of the bowl. Now that we've oiled the bowl, we're going to knead the dough. And to make sure the dough doesn't stick, put a little bit of flour on your counter to make it so it doesn't stick. You need to get the dough from the mixer. And take it out and put it on the counter. And then clump it into a ball and knead the dough. The dough is a little dry, so we're going to add some water. Now that you've kneaded the dough, clump it into a ball and stick it into the bowl that you have already put olive oil in. Now that you have your bread in the dough, roll the bread around in the bowl to coat the bread with olive oil. Fill the bowl with water. Now that the bowl is full of water, leave it somewhere where it can rest. And then you're going to put a drying rack on top of it, and then you're going to put your dough on top of the drying rack. You're going to get 2 dish towels, and you don't want this to be burning hot water, that way you don't burn yourself. But get them damp, so put them under the water and then wring them out. Once you've done this, take your 2 towels and cover the bread to help it rise. Now wait an hour for the bread to rise. Now that the dough is risen for an hour, we're going to spray the pan. You want to take the pan, shake the spray, and you want to take your dough that is risen and divide it in half. And put half in each of the pans. And then put your pans on the water. And then put the cloth back on it and let them rise for another 30 minutes. Now we're going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Now that you've let the bread rise for another 30 minutes, take the bread out and put it in the oven. Cook the bread at 350 for 30 minutes. Now we're making the garlic butter for the garlic bread. We are peeling 4 garlic cloves. Now that the garlic has been peeled, we're going to use the vegetable chopper to mince the garlic. Now that we've minced the garlic, we're going to add it to the bowl. Now we're going to chop 2 tablespoons of parsley. Now that we have 1 tablespoon of parsley, we're going to put it in the bowl. And we're going to put the 2nd tablespoon in the bowl. Now we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now we're going to cut up and add 1 stick of butter to the garlic butter. And now that everything's in the garlic butter, we're going to mix. Now that the bread is cooked for 30 minutes, it's time to take it out of the oven. Let it cool for about 10 minutes. Now we're going to dump out the bread. Now we're going to let the bread cool. Now we're going to make the sauce for the Alfredo. We're going to grate 3/4 cup of cheese using a cheese grater. You need to cut the cheese to make sure it'll fit in the cheese grater. Now that we have 3/4 cup of cheese, we are going to peel another garlic clove. Now that I've peeled the garlic clove, I'm going to mince it using the chopper. Now we're going to move the garlic onto the parchment paper to put in the pan later. Now we're going to chop 3 tablespoons of parsley. Now we're going to combine this parsley with the parsley that we previously chopped and had extra. And we're going to measure 3 tablespoons. Now we're going to zest a teaspoon of the lemon. Make sure not to get your fingers caught in the microphone while you're zesting. Now we have a teaspoon of zested lemons. Now we're going to preheat the oven to 425 for the garlic bread. And we're going to slice the bread. And we're going to top the bread with our garlic butter and place on a baking sheet. We're going to fill up a large pot with water for our pasta. We're going to put the water on high heat to boil. And now we're going to top our garlic bread with Parmesan cheese. And we're going to stick it in the oven for 10 minutes. Now we're going to start making the sauce for the Alfredo. We're going to add a tablespoon of unsalted butter. And we're going to put this on medium heat. And we're going to melt the butter. Now we're going to add the garlic and the lemon zest. And we're going to cook for a minute. Now we're going to add 2 teaspoons of flour. And we're going to cook for another minute, stirring. Now we're going to add 1 cup 2% milk. And I need to whisk in 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And cook for 3 minutes. Now I'm going to be adding 2 tablespoons low-fat cream cheese and the Parmesan cheese. And I'm going to whisk that for 1 minute. Now I'm going to stir in the fresh parsley. And then the sauce is finished. After the bread is cooked for 10 minutes, we're taking it out of the oven. Now that the water is boiling, I'm going to turn it down to medium-high and add 12 ounces of fettuccine. And now I'm going to cook that for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Now we're going to dump out the pasta into a colander. And we're going to save a cup of water. I'm going to add the pasta back into the pan. Along with the sauce. I'm gonna add a half a cup of water. And then toss. And that's fettuccine alfredo. Before I serve, I'm going to top it with some salt and then plate it. I'm going to add some cracked pepper. And then some Parmesan cheese. And then add one garlic bread.
Smells good, Dee.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
The bread's really good. Crunchy.
Mm. If we could have this for a regular meal if we just had a chicken.
That's good.
Don't you have to eat it?
Nice and creamy, cheesy.
Mmm. The bread's good too.
Now we're making the tiramisu. Start by lining your baking dish with plastic wrap, leaving a 3-inch overhang on each side. Next, you're going to fill up a large bowl with ice water. Now we're going to be separating the eggs and keeping the yolks. Do this to all 6 eggs. Separating the eggs is not as easy as it looks, so I've gotten a strainer to help me separate the egg yolks. Which may take a while. Now you're going to bring water to a simmer. Start out on high heat and then lower it to a simmer. Now that the water has started to simmer, turn it down to medium. And we're going to be measuring out all the ingredients that we're whisking into together. We're measuring out 3/4 cup of sugar. And 3/4 cup of milk. And then put your bowl on top of the simmering water and add your eggs and sugar, and then whisk together until the sugar dissolves. Now that the sugar's dissolved, add 3/4 cup of milk. And then let that cook for 10 minutes while whisking. Check the temperature to see if it's gotten to 170 degrees. Since it's not at 180 degrees yet, keep cooking it for a little bit longer. Keep checking the tiramisu to see if it's gotten up to 170 degrees. Now that your tiramisu is done cooking, take it off of the pot of simmering water and put it in the bath of ice water that you made earlier and stir it until it cools. It should be about a minute. Next, we're going to make a coffee with a Keurig. Next, we're going to add 32 ounces of mascarpone to the bowl and then fold in the custard. Now that you have all of the mascarpone in the bowl, fold in the custard. Only fold in the custard until it's almost combined. Now that it's almost combined, whisk until smooth. Now we're going to be combining the espresso and the cognac. Add in 1.5 cups of espresso. And then 1/2 cup of cognac. And then mix it together. And then you're going to dip each ladyfinger in the cognac and espresso until it's wet. And then put it in the pan, the baking dish. Now that you have one layer of that done, add about 1/3 of the mascarpone and now do the same thing for the next 2 layers. Now all you have to do is just top it with cocoa powder and then cover it with saran wrap. And then just put it in the fridge for 4 hours or overnight. Now we're going to be making a spinach and artichoke dip. To start, we're going to peel 1 clove of garlic. Now that we've peeled the garlic, we're going to mince it. And then we're going to add it to our medium bowl. Now we're going to shred a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese to add to the bowl. And now we're going to add 1/4 cup of Romano cheese. Now we're going to add a 1/4 cup of the Romano cheese to the bowl. We're also going to add 8 ounces of cream cheese. Now we're going to add half a teaspoon of basil. And then 1/4 teaspoon of garlic salt. And then we're going to add 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. And then we're going to mix this up. Next, we're going to be chopping up a 1/2 cup of spinach. Now that I've chopped up some spinach, make sure you measure it that you have the right amount. Now once you have your 1/2 cup of spinach, add it to the bowl. And next we're going to be draining and chopping a 14-ounce can of artichokes. Now that you've chopped your artichokes, add them to the medium-sized bowl. Next, we're going to spray our pan to make sure that the spinach and artichoke dip doesn't stick. And then we're going to mix in the spinach and the artichokes into the cream cheese. Now that they're mixed together, we're going to add them to the baking dish. Next, we're going to shred a 1/4 cup of mozzarella cheese to add to the top of our spinach artichoke dip. We're going to be doing this using a cheese grater. I'm going to take our 1/4 cup of cheese and we're going to add it to the top. Now we're going to be cooking the chicken Parmesan soup. We're going to start by cooking the chicken. You're going to oil the pan just enough so that the chicken doesn't stick. And then you're going to turn it on to medium heat. And then you're going to add the chicken to the pan. Now flip the chicken using tongs. Now the chicken is cooked and it's ready to go in the soup, so you can just turn off the burner and wait until it's time to put it in the soup. Now we're going to peel 3 garlic cloves for the soup. Now that we've peeled our 3 garlic cloves, we're going to mince them using a chopper. Next, we're going to peel and chop this onion. Now that we've peeled the onion, we're going to chop it. Now we're going to open up the can for our soup. We're going to cut up the chicken into bite-sized pieces for the soup. Now we're going to shred 1.5 cups of mozzarella cheese. Now we're measuring the 1.5 cups of mozzarella cheese. Now we're going to shred a cup of the parmesan cheese. Now we're going to start cooking the soup. Turn your burner on to medium heat and then add a tablespoon of olive oil to the pot. And then heat the oil. And then add your onion to the pot. And then let this cook while stirring for 5 minutes. Now we're going to add our tomato paste and red pepper flakes. We're going to add 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. And then we're going to add our can of tomatoes, and then we're going to add 6 cups of vegetable broth, of bone broth, sorry. This is 4 cups. And then this is going to be 2 more cups. And then we're going to bring that to a simmer. Now we're going to chop up the parsley. And then we're going to measure out a tablespoon. Now that the soup is simmering, I'm going to add 8 ounces of penne pasta. We're now going to simmer for 9 minutes. Next, we're going to be adding a tablespoon of parsley, 3/4 of a pound of chicken, and then the mozzarella and parmesan cheese. Let this cook until the cheese is melted and then your soup is finished. To cook the spinach and artichoke dip, set your oven to 350. Now that the oven's preheated, put the spinach and artichoke dip in the oven and cook it for 25 minutes. Now that you've let the spinach and artichoke dip cook for 25 minutes, take it out of the oven and then let it cool down, and then your spinach and artichoke dip is done.
Oh, that bite was a little spicy. It's good though.
It's
You like
real
it?
good.
Mm. Yum yum. Alright. Oh, look how cheesy. I'm gonna serve you. Pull your plate up, please.
It's good. Nice and cheesy.
It is good. It tastes
Creamy.
just like BJ's when we get it there, doesn't it? Dylan, I think I'm gonna lose my cooking job. It's gonna be up to you.
No.
All right, you want to do this right away? All right, let's try this. I'm gonna give you this part without the chocolate. All right, so this is the tiramisu.
It tastes good.
I can't even taste the coffee. It's good.
It's really good.
Wow. It is really good, Dee.